Chimpanzees have entered the Stone Age.
That chimpanzee just made a stone tool, and that one's hunting with a spear. If this looks like the Stone Age to you, you're not wrong. They've wielded stone tools for thousands of years, and some are virtually identical to those crafted by our own ancestors.
Now, this could be an argument that goes both ways. This stone, obviously we're arguing they're entering the Stone Age, but the fact that they're using these stones could be argued for if that supports the idea that they're moving into the Stone Age, because they can monkey see, monkey do, that's a common phrase. Monkeys are good at learning. They're one of the smartest animals on earth other than humans. Dolphins, birds, I think those are like the top ones, really. And when I say birds, I mean specifically ravens. But shit like emus, they're dumber than fuck. Don't fuck with them. They're stupid. If they took the ACT, they'd get a -5, bro. They'd forget. They don't even know their own name. They go to write, whatever. Sorry, we're getting off track. What I'm trying to say is they're smart enough to monkey see, monkey do. So if they see humans, if a human teaches it to use a stone to hit two rocks together, or use a spear to go spearfishing, there's that picture of the monkey here. I'll pull it up. I think it's a video, but it's this picture right here. Like look at that. Did he learn to do that, or did humans teach him, or did he learn from humans? It's one of them. Are they really entering the Stone Age? All right, well, let's get into these videos.
They've wielded stone tools for thousands of years, and some are virtually identical to those crafted by our own ancestors.
So are they truly in the Stone Age, or just standing on the edge? Let's find out.
For decades, researchers thought tool use is what separated us from the other animals, what made us human. That was until a revolutionary primatologist conducted a study in the 1960s.
That was one of the things that made us human, but that wasn't really what set us apart from other animals. The fact that we could communicate so many ideas and understand so many ideas to each other is what makes us human. Neanderthals, all the other human species, because we're Homo sapiens and there's Neanderthals. Let me actually look it up real quick. So this says there's 21 different human species have existed on this earth. Homo Neanderthals, Homo erectus, it goes down the list, right? There's all of these different kinds of humans. We're Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens won, because at one time we were in a competition to see what human would win, right? We're at the same time on earth, there's Neanderthals, there's Homo sapiens, there's Homo erectus. We competed with each other. It's kind of just like if dinosaurs and humans were on the earth at the same time. We weren't living at the same time, but we outlived them. Could we have lived? Is there a universe where there's Homo sapiens and Homo erectus and Neanderthals all living at once? Yeah, probably. But Homo erectus I'm not Homo. Anyway, Neanderthals, we believed them to be very aggressive and just dumber than what we were. We don't know that for sure. What does that world look like if we're living here how we do, which we obviously put harm onto other animals, but our own species, not as much. So what's to say Neanderthals wouldn't just try to kill us just because? If a coyote sees you out in the wild in the middle of the night, it's probably, you're probably not safe. So there's that to consider as well. But there's definitely crossbreeding. I think maybe not all humans, but most humans have a little bit of Neanderthal DNA into them, so that means we were crossbreeding with them. So we're not 100% Homo sapien, but you get the idea. What set us apart from what set us apart from Homo sapiens, from Neanderthals, from Homo erectus, is that we could talk to each other and communicate, and we could form a little clique, our clique. We had little groups, families that we would form. You wouldn't just have a kid and say, go fuck yourself and leave them. They would play a role eventually. If you have kids, they would help the mother go pick berries or whatever. The father probably went to go hunt animals, and once the kid got old enough, started to hit puberty, now he's going to go hunt animals, and then also when we can plan strategies, those ideas that we can talk to each other, we could actually talk strategy and hey, how do we take down this mammoth? It's so big. If you're a coyote, you're just like, let's just go bite that shit. Let's see if it works out. But no, humans let's draw it over here. Let's cut the legs, then stab it in the heart when it's on the ground. Shit like that. So that's what sets us apart. Not just the use of tools, but...
Jane Goodall ventured into the remote Gombe Stream National Park in Tanzania. One day, she witnessed chimpanzees at a termite mound repeatedly poke stalks of grass into the holes. The termites would bite onto the grass defensively, allowing the chimp to pull them out and eat them.
That's smart.
Astonished at her discovery, Goodall told paleoanthropologist Louis Leakey, who wrote, Now we must redefine tool, redefine man, or accept chimpanzees as human. Tools are evolutionary game changers. They unlock resources that would otherwise be impossible to reach. In the case of termite fishing, the stick directly aids chimpanzees in acquiring this food source. But this is far from their only tool. Further research has found that chimpanzees actually use over 20 different tools.
Wow.
Not just anyone can fight for everyone. Marines are made for this.
With USAA Safe Pilot, I can save when I drive safely.
With USAA Safe Pilot Miles, I can save when I drive less.
One of the most important is their use of stone tools. Stone hammers are used to smash open hard nuts against anvil stones. This lets them consume abundant calories they otherwise would have no chance at eating. A recent paper looked closely at this behavior and found something fascinating. Using stone tools to open nuts is not...
I think it's interesting to think about if, dolphins are one of the other smartest mammals on Earth. What if they had, they can't use tools because they can only hold on to stuff with their mouth, right? And there's levels to your ability to even use tools. Like a simple, I guess, analogy, maybe not analogy, a simple graph or image to put in your head is you can look at a dolphin, which only has its mouth to even use anything, right? And then, because they'll fucking toss pufferfish around and make it blow up, and it will release gas, and they'll just get enough gas to get high, but not enough to harm them. Like, that's a common thing they do. So that's like one thing they like know what to do with a pufferfish. They just throw it back and forth with their mouth or hit it with their snout, And then you can go to monkeys, and they can, which is a big jump, but I guess ravens would kind of go in that dolphin section too, because they have the beak, but they also have claws they can use as well. So they're adding an extra 2 grabbers. And then you obviously have monkeys who have hands and feet, but they don't have thumbs. It doesn't work like our human thumbs. So that kind of stops them from, I guess, having the ability to use tools like us. And then there's us, kind of the final boss, where we have thumbs and we can actually grab on to stuff. It's not just like this kind of thing. It's where you're just kind of holding on. You have this extra dimension right here to hold on to stuff. So I kind of just think about what if dolphins had arms? What would they be able to do? Would they be able to eventually evolve into something like a human where they can communicate with each other and build their own shit? I don't know.
Present in every population. Chimps in seasonal, resource-scarce environments exploit nuts more often. But the study also looked closer
I'll
at the
exploit your
hammers and
nuts,
anvils
buddy.
themselves. They found that they differ regionally and choose a certain hammer stone size depending on the hardness
I'll
of the
hammer
net.
your stone.
The so-called anvils that they smash the nuts against are usually just large flat stones that happen to be near the nut trees.
I'll
These
nut in your
anvils
tree.
are fairly
I'm
distinct
sorry, I'll stop.
archaeologically, and researchers have found evidence that their use goes back at least 4,300 years, meaning that this behavior likely extends far into prehistory. What is also interesting to note is that some populations do not smash nuts at all, meaning some chimpanzee populations are more technologically advanced than others. Another important tool that chimpanzees use are spears. Yeah, that's right. They make their own spears by taking off a sturdy
Look at
stick
his
and biting the
nuts.
tip to form a sharp end. They use these weapons to stab into the burrows
That's his
of bush
asshole,
babies,
I think.
which are some of the cutest animals on the planet.
Aww.
They jam the stick into the burrow,
Yo.
killing the animal, and then they use the stick to get the animal out. These
Wow,
spears seem to be
that's
used
crazy.
exclusively for hunting animals that they physically cannot get to. They have never been witnessed using them against one another. However, chimpanzees have been documented
Wow.
using sticks and branches to hit each other. They even throw rocks during aggressive
I mean, dude, they'll
encounters.
take a shit and just throw it at somebody. Like, they don't give a fuck.
It seems that they have already had their 2001 Space
What
Odyssey
the
moment. So chimpanzees use rocks to crack open nuts, they fish for termites, and they even stab prey with spears.
Dang,
So
buddy.
have they truly entered the Stone Age? Well, they are far from the only animals to use tools.
What'd I say?
Orangutans use sticks to fish for insects and honey. You may have even seen this image of an orangutan
Dude!
spearfishing.
I pulled that
While
up.
it is true that this orangutan was imitating some fishermen he was watching,
See?
he was unsuccessful and pretty much just splashed a stick at the bar. So it's not impressive as
What a
it might seem.
dumbass.
Apparently after this shot, he ended
Oh,
up
God.
stealing a fish that was already hooked by a fisherman. So I guess that's a win.
This
But
guy.
plenty of other primates like capuchin monkeys use stones on a daily basis to open shellfish. Even otters use stones to open shellfish. Crows
Wow.
fish with sticks, and octopuses use shells for
Octopus,
protection.
that's another smart one too.
Tool use is not exclusive to humans nor primates. So then what set our ancestors apart? Well, our ancestors took stone tools to another level by modifying them. By smashing stones together, they broke off sharp stone edges which could cut. This opened up all kinds of new resources for our ancestors. Just as the termite sticks or spears allowed chimpanzees to extract calories out of their environment, sharp stone tools allowed our ancestors to do the same. On the savannas where we evolved,
Dude, isn't that fucking crazy?
sharp stone tools
This is how like humans used to just like walk around. Like, dude, like I imagine it didn't take that long to invent clothing, right? Because there's no like the first dude to like gain consciousness and be like, yo, why's my dick and balls hanging out like this, dude? Let me cover this shit up. Like, dude, you walk in a book, dude. If your nuts are hanging out, you can't go through you cannot go through a fucking crowded woods. You know, especially in the tropical area where it's probably easier to live than a colder region. Obviously, if you don't have clothes, you're not going to survive that long. So in a tropical region where it's really tight packed, you know, trees and bushes and plants, and you walk through that bitch, your wiener's getting cut clean, dude. I don't give a fuck. Swishing! Thorn in your pecker, bro. GG, you're cooked. Bye-bye. So, of course, it couldn't have taken that long, dude. How long were we looking like this, dude?
allowed our ancestors to do the same. On the savannas where we evolved, carnivores are constantly killing prey and leaving their carcasses with plenty of meat and bone marrow left over. A study looking at zebras killed by lions found that on average, 33 pounds or 15 kilograms of meat was left over. That is roughly 20,000 calories in meat alone, not to mention the
Hold on, I want to look something up real quick. So, the oldest human remains, Homo sapiens specifically, are 300,000 years old, which is a pretty new discovery because we initially believed that, what's her name? Yeah, Lucy. Lucy was originally, holy shit, 3.2 million. So, the oldest human ever found, as of now, according to this right here, which I'm pretty sure there's been a new discovery. I'll look up after this. But this has been the belief for a long time. Lucy was found in southern Africa 3.2 million years ago. There's a great book. It's called Homo Sapien. It's just called Sapiens, this book right here. It's a really fun book. It's easy to understand. It's fucking amazing. I recommend getting this book if you're interested in this topic. It's very, very good. But yeah, Lucy is, according to this book, and as of recently, Lucy has been the oldest human remains found, and that's in southern Africa. And, you know, so that's where we're kind of believed to start. But I think there's been recent discoveries that date it even further back and in a different region as well. I can't really find it, but I heard it on Joe Rogan, so maybe it wasn't true. But it was in, somewhere in Asia, I think, that where humans were originally found. But yeah, for right now, Lucy, 3.2 million years ago, that's the earliest Homo sapien. So, that's not really the first one. That's the oldest one we have proof of, because we can't say there's older people if we don't have proof of it. Obviously, there was older people than that. She wasn't just the first one to spawn in, but before that, we were started to be bipedal creatures, walk on two legs, the whole bone structure of humans is differs from like monkeys, say chimpanzees. They can walk on two, but they're not really meant to. Like it's really bad for their bones and their back to do that. So once we started walking on two, our bone structure started to change and allow us to just walk on two feet and be bipedal full time. All right, let's get back to the video. Jesus, I'm yapping so much, dude.
marrow.
We're only
This
4
would have met
minutes
the
in.
daily requirements of about 27 early hominins. But to harvest this meat, our ancestors needed the sharp edges of stone to cut through tendons, scrape off meat, and break into the brains and marrow. This was one of humanity's biggest breakthroughs, and it's not far off of what chimpanzees are currently doing in Africa. The earliest modified stone tools are 3.3 million years old. We don't know who was making them.
Jesus.
It was most likely our ancestors or close relatives, but who knows? It could have even been the ancestors of chimpanzees. What we do know is that stone tool use wouldn't catch on until around 2.4 million years ago, when hominids started selecting stone that could hold a sharp edge, and then they learned how to produce efficient tools.
Here's an example of the kinds of tools that our ancestors were using well over 2 million years ago. It's really just a sharp flake of stone, but it's an incredibly useful tool for cutting through flesh and also pounding through bones and other objects. Though it's extremely simple, it was an evolutionary game changer for our ancestors.
Many paleoanthropologists would argue that the intentional development of a cutting edge has to be the lower bound of the Stone Age. Otherwise, otters and capuchins are also in the Stone Age. Chimpanzees have never been documented in the wild creating a sharp stone tool, but they are limited for a number of reasons. First of all, fine-grained stones that create sharp edges when broken, such as flint, are not common in the modern range of chimpanzees. Most of the time it is thick jungle, and the stones they have access to are basically useless for cutting. Our ancestors, on the other hand, lived across open, rocky savannas that often had sources of quality stone. But just because chimpanzees don't have access to the right raw materials for knapping stone, doesn't mean they lack the intelligence to understand it. So researchers had a bold idea. What if we simply taught a chimpanzee how to flint knap? Meet Kanzi, a language-competent bonobo, who was taught to flint knap in the early 1990s.
Blood needs to lay off the Oreos.
Find your perfect tax expert, whatever your tax situation might be. Hand off your taxes to an expert who gets you with TurboTax Expert Full Service.
Can I have some, Grandma?
Can I have your youth?
Sure.
Commit to the Skittles. Keep eating.
Bonobos are a closely related cousin of chimpanzees, often seen as more socially intelligent. Kanzi was especially intelligent. He even learned how to play Minecraft, but it was this video of him flint knapping that honestly blew my mind. They first focused on showing him how to knock off flakes through percussion, which is what I'm doing here. You literally hit one rock against another rock in order to knock off a stone flake. So now let's watch some incredible close-up footage of Kanzi napping.
Oh, look there what Kanzi made. That's really perfect. Oh, look at that one. Oh, thank you. They would really cut things good.
Kanzi was able to knock off flakes consistently, and after a while, he even came up with his own methods of flint knapping. Instead of using the hammerstone in his hand, he started throwing it at the core. This may have helped him overcome challenges unique to the hands of chimpanzees, or to protect his fingers. But how fascinating is it that he invented a new flint knapping technique? After 2 years of practice, researchers decided it was finally time to put his skills to the test. They gave him an unmodified core of flint and a hammerstone. Nearby was a clear box with fruit inside. It was held shut by a thick nylon cord. In order to get to his reward, he would have to hit off a large sharp flake to cut through the cord. During the trial, knocking off flakes was not a problem for the trained bonobo. However, some of these flakes were too small, so he would try again. He would select the largest flakes and assess their sharpness by looking at the edge and testing it on his tongue.
Wow.
Eventually, he knocked off a large flake and was able to cut open the box.
Damn.
This process was repeated 11 times, producing an abundance of
Only
data
11?
and artifacts. Now here's where it gets really interesting. When researchers analyzed the bonobo-made artifacts, they found something remarkable. Many of them were virtually indistinguishable from the tools that our ancestors made 2 million years ago. The flakes had striking platforms, bulbs of percussion, and sharp usable edges. The ones he decided to use were the largest and sharpest tools. His method of assessing the sharpness with his tongue may have been the same way our ancestors assessed sharpness, but there were differences too. Our ancestors usually knocked off flakes at around 80 degrees to consistently produce long flakes. Kanzi's flakes averaged nearly 90 degrees, essentially right angles. This is the maximum angle at which these materials will fracture at all. This tells us that Kanzi did not have quite as complex an understanding of flint knapping as our ancestors did 2 million years ago, and this may also be due to chimpanzee hands not being as dexterous as ours. Our lineage has been knapping stone for well over 2 million years. Modern human hands are quite literally evolved to knap stone. It was only in the past 5,000 years or so that most of us stopped. Kanzi's flint knapping was impressive, but it was notably worse than, say, Homo erectus. Either way, it gives us a window into what the earliest sharp stone tools would have looked like. Our minds were already capable of understanding how to create sharp stone edges, and our dexterous hands came later. In another study conducted 14 years later, Kanzi had clearly become more adept at making and using stone tools. Kanzi and another bonobo used stone to break into logs and dig, both getting a reward if successful. Kanzi used flakes like a drill, rotating them to bore deeper into the log. He used larger flakes as wedges to pry into the logs and even used them to chop. In another part of the experiment, he used flakes as shovels to dig into tough sediment to retrieve food.
Wow.
It's interesting to note that Kanzi was far more successful than the other less trained bonobo, indicating that his training really did pay off and allowed him to access these resources. Kanzi lived on for about a decade doing all kinds of fun scientific studies before sadly passing away in March of 2025.
No.
These studies show that with human interaction or training, bonobos and chimpanzees can produce intentional stone tools, leaving wear patterns comparable to early human artifacts. Such tool production and utilization competencies are extremely similar to the competencies of early humans such as Homo habilis and Homo erectus. A 2021 study on untrained chimpanzees showed that they did not spontaneously create or use sharp flake stone tools, even when provided with materials, suggesting extensive social learning or training is necessary for this behavior. We know that chimpanzees have to learn how to process nuts with stones and anvils from their relatives who teach them the technique. It's a cultural innovation. In order for wild chimpanzees to start flaking their own stone tools, they would have to have quality stone available to them, and importantly, a reason to create sharp tools. Without direct human intervention, this seems unlikely. But funny enough, capuchin monkeys in Brazil are accidentally achieving what we consider a human milestone. They use stone hammers to open fruits and nuts, but also for a far stranger reason. They smash rocks together to create dust which they then lick up. Scientists really have no idea why they do this. Maybe it's to help them get some minerals into their diet. Regardless of why they do it, they happen to create stone flakes that are virtually identical to early human tools in Africa.
Huh.
These stone flakes have been found in Brazil in layers dating back over 50,000 years ago. At first it was thought that humans were in the region tens of thousands of years before we thought, but it now seems it was actually capuchin monkeys leaving a seemingly human signature.
Wow.
So ironically, capuchin monkeys have unintentionally entered the Stone Age before our closest relatives. So are chimpanzees in the Stone Age? Kind of, but not really. They've been hunting with spears and cracking nuts with stone hammers for thousands of years. And Kanzi proved that bonobos can flintnap when taught. Yet wild individuals have never made a cutting tool on their own, at least as far as we know. Not because they lack the cognitive capacity, but because they lack the necessity. The story of our own species likely mirrors this pattern. We exploited carcasses with sharp stone tools to get access to an entirely new food source. During severe droughts or food scarcity, tool-using apes had a much better chance at surviving. This feedback loop favored an increasing reliance on tools, and fundamentally shaped what we became. Tool use likely became non-negotiable for our survival. Chimpanzees do not face these same circumstances. They simply need a reason, and let's hope they never get one. Well, that was a fun one. I still can't believe these videos of chimpanzees flintnapping. I legitimately know humans who are worse at flintnapping. What topic should I cover next? Comment down below, hit that like button, and most important...
W video. Let's look at the comments. Chimpanzees gonna de-evolve when they learn about taxes. Could you imagine how funny it'd be if humans finally achieved sustainable nuclear fusion energy and some seventh dimensional beings write a research paper about humans have finally entered the Glortian? That's funny. Chimps pretend to be stupid to avoid paying taxes. Finally, chimpanzees have caught up with the technological progress of Birmingham. Oh my god, that is fucked. Well, chat, W video, W topic. I love, that's like one of my favorite topics to talk about is the history of humans. So kind of relating it to chimpanzees is kind of fun. Alright, chat, that's it. Appreciate you for watching. If you're watching this far, I doubt anyone is, but appreciate you, man. Alright, have a good one. Peace.